It was supposed to be a fresh start, after years of working overseas on assignments she couldn't even tell me about. Maya was finally home. We found a quiet, well-kept neighborhood on the edge of town, manicured lawns, white fences, and people who waved a little too enthusiastically. Perfect, we thought. Peaceful, normal. We moved in on a Saturday. The neighbors across the street brought cookies. The older man next door helped me carry in our washer. And Maya, even though she always had a tough exterior from years in the field, smiled more that day than I'd seen in a long time. Her black SUV, the one she drove for official business, was parked in our driveway. Nothing flashy, just heavily tinted, clean, and always locked up tight. For the first week, everything was calm. I went about setting up the house, and Maya spent most of her time in the garage, unpacking crates from her federal gear, most of it sealed and classified. She kept her service gear hidden, but it didn't take long for people to notice she wasn't exactly the average neighbor. She didn't do chit-chat, she didn't go to the local bake sale, and she definitely didn't smile at gossip. That's when Karen Lively made her entrance. Karen was the self-declared queen of the neighborhood. Hoa president, clipboard always in hand, and eyes that seemed to skin everything. She showed up on our doorstep one morning, tight curls, pink blazer, overly sweet smile, and introduced herself with a tone that felt more like a warning than a welcome. She complimented our unique presence in the community and mentioned neighborhood standards no less than 5 times into minutes. Maya just nodded silently and walked back into the garage. I didn't think much of it then, but from that moment on, Karen was watching us. Every time Maya pulled in or out of the driveway, especially at odd hours, Karen was either peeking from behind her curtain or casually walking her dog near our mailbox. One night, I caught her standing in front of our house taking pictures with her phone. When I stepped outside to ask what she was doing, she claimed she was just documenting suspicious activity. For the HOA a week later, I found a printed notice stuffed into our door. It said there were concerns about military-grade equipment being stored improperly. No names were mentioned, but we knew exactly who had filed the complaint. Karen wasn't even subtle. She told a neighbor at the Hoa meeting that the new woman gives off black ops energy. She started whispering to others, asking if they knew where Maya had come from, what she had done overseas, and if we had permits for that SUV. One of the neighbors even asked me if Maya had ever worked with weapons, which was a red flag, considering how little anyone should have known about her background. Karen was spreading things fast, some of it laughably wrong, some of it dangerously close to the truth. Maya told me not to worry. She said, "Let them talk. It's what civilians do when they don't understand what they're seeing." But I saw it bothering her, not the gossip but the surveillance. The idea that she couldn't even come home without being watched. I thought we were just dealing with a nosy neighbor. I had no idea what kind of war Karen was about to start. At first, it was just little things, small, annoying notices slipped under our door or taped to the side of our mailbox, trash bin left out too long, garage door open past Hoa-approved hours. Vehicle must be registered with Hoa for driveway use. I knew who was behind it. Even before I saw her handwriting on one of the notes, Karen had made us her personal project. The strange part was, we followed every rule. Maya was meticulous about structure, probably a side effect of her training. Our trash was never out late. Our lawn was trimmed, and her SUV, while blacked out and government issued, was perfectly legal. But Karen didn't care. Her problem wasn't with rules, it was with Maya. She started showing up during the day, pacing slowly past our house like a vulture. Sometimes with a clipboard, sometimes with her tiny white dog. Every time Maya stepped outside, whether to check the mail or grab something from the garage, Karen would stare, then scribble something down like she was building a case file. One afternoon, I found Maya standing at the end of the driveway, arms crossed, silent as Karen talked at her. I couldn't hear everything from inside, but I caught enough. Karen's voice had that sharp, forced sweet tone. She was saying something about Maya's intimidating presence and how some of the neighbors were concerned about her foreign background. Maya didn't flinch, didn't blink. She just stared at Karen until she finally ran out of breath and walked away. When I asked Maya about it later, she just shrugged and said, she's harmless. But I wasn't so sure. I'd seen Karen's type before, the kind of person who masks control with concern, who hides power moves behind smiles and paperwork. And she wasn't stopping. Within days, a second notice arrived about the SUV, unregistered. Commercial vehicle parked on residential property. Must be removed. I laughed at first. The idea that Karen thought she had any authority over a federally assigned vehicle was absurd. But Maya didn't laugh. She stayed quiet, watching things, thinking ahead like she always did. That made me nervous. What really set me off was when I caught Karen crouched near our fence one morning, pointing her phone camera at our side yard. I opened the door fast, and she jumped, pretending to tie her shoe. I asked her if she needed something. She smiled and said, "Just making sure everything's in order." That night, I installed security cameras around the house. Maya didn't say a word, but I saw the tension in her shoulders. She wasn't afraid, just annoyed, maybe even insulted. I should have known then Karen wasn't going to stop, and Maya wasn't going to back down. It happened on a Sunday morning. Maya was in the garage sorting through sealed storage crates, federal gear, locked tight and labeled in code only her agency would understand. It was nothing illegal, nothing dangerous out in the open, just her reorganizing after the move. She had her sleeves rolled up, her boots dusty, and that focused look she always got when she worked. I was inside making coffee when I heard the sound of tires crunching gravel. When I stepped outside, 2 squad cars were parked in front of our house. Blue lights flashing, but no sirens. My stomach dropped. 2 officers stepped out. One older, one younger. They approached the driveway cautiously, hands near their belts. Karen stood nearby, arms folded like she'd just won a prize, lips pursed in smug victory. She'd finally done it. She called the cops on Maya. "Ma'am," the older officer said to Maya, "we received a report about possible illegal storage of firearms or military-grade equipment. Would you mind explaining what's going on in here?" Maya didn't even blink. She wiped her hands on her cargo pants, walked over calmly, and said, "Sure. Would you like to see my federal clearance first or the inventory manifest?" The younger officer looked confused. Maya reached into a sealed folder she kept by the door and pulled out 2 documents, one her clearance ID with a federal seal, the other a typed list with coded item numbers and agency stamps. She handed them over without a trace of emotion. The officers looked it over, nodded to each other, and backed off almost immediately. The older one even apologized. "We didn't realize you were with federal operations. Everything looks in order here, ma'am." Maya nodded once. "No problem. You're just doing your job." Karen, who had been standing behind the officers the whole time, suddenly stepped forward. "Wait, you're just leaving. You're not going to confiscate anything. She has military crates in there." The officers gave her a tight smile and walked back to their car. Karen started yelling, "She's intimidating." She stood there like some kind of soldier. Her voice cracked with frustration. But no one was listening anymore. The squad cars pulled away. Karen stood frozen on the sidewalk, breathing hard, lips trembling. Maya didn't say anything. She just walked back into the garage and closed the door. That night, we bought motion cameras, set up a recording system, and installed floodlights. Maya gave me a folder with her legal documents just in case. From that point on, we recorded everything, every knock, every warning notice. Every time Karen passed by our house with her phone out, she'd started a game she didn't understand. And Maya was done playing nice. The whispers started small. First, it was just curious looks from the neighbors as we walked by. Then it turned into hushed conversations that stopped the second we got close. I didn't need to ask to know who was behind it. Karen had kicked her campaign into high gear. She started telling anyone who'd listen that Maya had a military background from a foreign country, and that there was no telling what kind of weapons she was keeping in that garage. Few neighbors, the kind who liked to stir the pot just for fun, ran with it. One even told someone down the block that Maya was part of Israeli intelligence, some kind of spy. Another said she saw Maya carrying a briefcase that looked bomb-proof. It was a laptop case. Then came the Hoa drama. Karen called an emergency board meeting. Of course, we weren't invited, but word got back to us from a sympathetic neighbor. Karen tried to convince the board to file a motion that would force us to move out for the safety of the community. She claimed Maya had brought tension and fear to the neighborhood. She used the police incident like proof, twisting the facts to fit her story. The board didn't bite, not fully, but some were starting to ask questions. Karen was planting seeds, and unfortunately, a few were beginning to grow. Then, out of nowhere, something happened that even Karen didn't expect. A guy named Brett, one of the neighbors who worked in IT, got a little too curious for his own good. He did a deep search online, poking around government databases that most people don't even know exist. He found it, a single, archived page from an old federal site buried, but still live, showing Maya in full tactical gear during a classified training event. Her name, partially redacted. Her title, Commander, Federal Tactical Operations, Weapons Division. Clearance, Tier 1 International. Brett didn't say anything at first. He just showed a few friends. But things like that don't stay quiet long. The photo spread fast. Phones lit up across the block. By the end of the week, half the neighborhood knew the truth. Maya wasn't just someone with military experience. She was the real deal, still active, still high clearance, and someone no one wanted to mess with. Karen had tried to paint Maya as a threat. Turns out, she was right. Just not in the way she thought. It was just past midnight when the motion alert pinged my phone. I figured it was a raccoon or maybe a neighbor's cat triggering the sensor by the side garage. But then I saw the live camera feed. Someone was there. Someone was actually inside the gate. I jumped out of bed and called for Maya. By the time I threw on shoes, she was already dressed, slipping on her tactical vest like it was muscle memory. No panic, no rush, just quiet readiness. She grabbed a flashlight and slid open the side door. What we saw stopped both of us cold. It was Karen. She was crouched in front of one of the sealed metal crates in the side garage, wearing black from head to toe, her phone flashlight in her mouth and gloves on like some amateur spy. She didn't even hear us until Maya turned on the industrial-grade spotlight. We'd mounted on the corner beam. The beam hit her full in the face. Karen spun around, eyes wide. For a split second, she froze, caught like a deer in headlights. Then she bolted. In her rush to get out, she tripped over one of the metal cases and fell hard, her head smacking the concrete floor with a loud thud. Maya immediately stepped forward, not to attack, but to check if she was okay. Karen rolled onto her side, groaning in pain, clutching her leg and yelling. She assaulted me. We didn't touch her. I called 911 immediately and reported a break-in. Maya stayed back, arms up and visible, just in case Karen tried to twist the story, which she did, of course. By the time officers arrived, Karen had already spun a tale about being pushed and threatened. She claimed she was trying to gather proof that we were hiding illegal weapons, and that Maya attacked her in the dark. We handed over the full camera footage before she could finish her sentence. Even so, Karen wasn't done. A week later, we got the notice Karen was filing a lawsuit for assault and emotional distress. She'd also lodged an official harassment complaint with the city, saying we created a hostile environment. Maya didn't even flinch when I read it out loud. She just looked at me and said, "Let her. She just broke federal law." And that's when I realized Karen hadn't just crossed a line, she'd stepped straight into a minefield. Maya didn't yell, she didn't post anything, she didn't even look angry. The morning after the lawsuit notice came in, she made coffee, sat at the kitchen table, and started typing. I knew that look, the one she used when everything in her mind was clicking into place. Like a tactical plan. By noon, she'd submitted an official report to her agency. It wasn't just a police matter anymore. Karen had stepped onto federal ground. The moment she broke into that garage, the crate she tampered with, classified storage, her lies, now part of a written case of defamation and unlawful interference with a federal officer. Maya didn't threaten, she documented. A week passed. We didn't hear anything publicly, and Maya never brought it up to the neighbors. She waved politely. She went on her jogs. She even pruned the hedges like everything was fine. But behind the scenes, wheels were turning. Then one morning, 3 dark SUVs rolled up the street. No sirens, no lights, just quiet authority. They parked right in front of Karen's house. 2 men and 1 woman stepped out, suits and badges flashing just enough to say, "This isn't local." Karen was in her front yard, watering flowers like always. She smiled at them until she saw who they were. That smile cracked fast. I watched from our window as they walked up and started talking. Karen's face went pale. Her hands started shaking. She dropped the watering can without realizing it. Was like watching a balloon deflate in real time. Her shoulders slumped. Her mouth kept moving. But no words seemed to come out. The agents didn't raise their voices. They didn't need to. They handed her a folder, said a few things I couldn't hear, and walked away. Karen didn't move for a long time. Later that day, she shut all her blinds. No more pacing the street. No more notes. No more fake smiles. Maya said nothing. She didn't celebrate. She didn't gloat. All she said was, "Now it's on record." And just like that, the power shifted. The neighborhood changed almost overnight. Word got around faster than I expected, probably thanks to the quiet whispers of a few board members who had seen the federal agents show up at Karen's door. People started putting the pieces together. The lawsuit, the rumors, the break-in. And then came the kicker: confirmation that Karen was now the subject of a federal investigation. At the next Hoa meeting, attendance was unusually high. Karen tried to walk in like she still ran the place, clipboard in hand, smile fixed in place. But no one met her eyes. Even the ones who used to follow her round like ducklings suddenly kept their distance. Someone, maybe Brett, maybe someone else, had circulated the camera footage. The one where Karen was caught in our garage with a flashlight. And once people saw that, her whole story collapsed. One by one, neighbors came forward. Some admitted Karen had pressured them into complaining about Maya. Others said she'd told them Maya was hiding explosives or working for a foreign government. A couple of them looked genuinely embarrassed for ever believing her. It was like the neighborhood finally woke up. That night, the vote was fast and brutal. Karen was removed as Hoa president. Unanimous. A few days later, a sheriff's deputy served her with a restraining order. She was legally required to stay at least 300 feet from our property. No notes, no pictures, no contact. She didn't fight it. She didn't even show her face when the papers were handed over. For the first time since we moved in, the block felt quiet. Not the kind of quiet where everyone's watching you. The kind where people leave you alone. Where peace actually means something. Maya didn't say much about it. She never does. But when she watered the plants that afternoon and saw Karen's windows shut tight, I swear I saw her smile just a little. Life settled into a strange kind of calm after that. The tension that used to hang in the air like a storm cloud finally drifted away. No more notes taped to the door. No more neighbors peeking through blinds. Just the soft hum of lawnmowers and the smell of backyard barbecues. Maya didn't return to the agency right away. She took some time for herself, for us. Most mornings, she'd jog before sunrise, then spend an hour or two in the garage working through drills, routines, and maintenance checks. She wasn't hiding it anymore. If anything, she was done pretending to be anything but exactly who she was. She mounted new cameras around the house, smarter ones, more discreet, tied directly to a private server only she had access to. The garage stayed locked, but the training mats were always laid out neatly. There was something peaceful about watching her work, watching her move like she was sharpening a blade. That never really dulled. What surprised me most was the shift in how the neighborhood saw her. At first, they didn't say much. A few gave polite waves. A couple of them went out of their way to nod or smile when she passed. But it was the kids who noticed first. They'd ride their bikes a little slower, past our driveway. One of them, maybe 9 or 10, asked Maya if she was a real soldier. She didn't answer directly. She just said, "I help keep people safe." That was enough. Before long, they treated her like some kind of quiet superhero. Not the flashy kind. The kind that just shows up when things get weird and makes sure no one gets hurt. Parents started relaxing when their kids were outside. That quiet comfort returned to the block, not because of the Hoa, not because of new rules, but because everyone now knew who lived in that dark house with the black SUV parked out front. Karen moved out quietly. No goodbye, no drama. Just a for sale sign that went up one morning and a moving truck that rolled away a few weeks later. Her house sold fast, but nobody talked much about her after that. It was like she vanished. Maya never gloated. She didn't need to. People learned. And I think that mattered more to her than anything else. Sometimes at night, we'd sit on the back porch, and she'd sip tea while the security monitor flickered beside her. She'd watch the footage like someone reading a familiar book. Always alert, always ready. But at peace. And me, I just felt lucky. Because while most people dream of living next to someone quiet and normal, I got something better. I live next to someone who can protect an entire block without saying a word. You never know who you're messing with, especially when your neighbor leads federal weapons ops.